The Starr and D'Amico Show, brought to you by cheapesttshirts.ca. Need blanks for your next event or club? Check out cheapesttshirts.ca. No minimum order, free shipping over $350. Same-day shipping on lots of items. Affordable, Canadian, ready to print your design. Brought to you by Catherine Prince at Remax Platine, your Montreal real estate connection. Call her at 514-702-2474 or email Catherine with a K, Catherine at catherineprince.com. If you're looking to buy, sell, or invest with confidence, Catherine Prince, your key to the city's property market. Brought to you by McLean's Pub. Looking for a lively downtown spot with great food and atmosphere? Come to McLean's Pub on Peel Street. Classic pub eats, plenty of beer, and all the sports on all the screens. Grab your friends and make McLean's your go-to place tonight. Brought to you by Cabletel, your full-service telecom partner for business and home. From structured cabling and phone systems to Wi-Fi, cameras, and alarms, Cabletel keeps you connected, secure, and performing at your best. Your partner for the future. It's Cabletel. Happy Sunday, y'all. Welcome to the Sunday extravaganza that is the Starr and D'Amico Show. There's Marco D'Amico. I am Shaun Starr. Pleasure to be with you, as we always are, Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. in the aftermath of a pretty busy weekend for the Montreal Canadiens. And as you heard in the intro there, we love our local sponsors. We know that you love them too. And as we round the corner into the month of December, I remind you to support Little Bear at littlebearonline.com. Everything you're going to need to stuff that stocking for your furry family member. You can shop online, littlebearonline.com. Great in-house expertise from Chuck and Evie and their wonderful staff at Little Bear on St. Catherine across from Westmount Square. Marco, good morning.
Good morning, everybody. I mean, listen, I know it's a little bit of a downer because the Canadiens did lose in a big way against the Colorado Avalanche 7-2, but to come out 4 points out of 6, considering where the Canadiens were prior to this road trip, honestly, I expected worse, to be completely honest. So to see them come out with 4 to 6 points, it's actually quite positive. The next week and a half is going to be insane. In fact, the entire month of December is going to be insane. So the Canadiens, they won't have a lot of time to dwell on this. They're going to need to go. They're going to need to move very quickly and forget this right off the bat. And I'm already being told that they're raring to go, against the Ottawa Senators. It's a big stand-up game. That's a 4-point game already early in this season.
Oh, yeah.
So I think right off the bat, that they're going to be ready to stand up for that kind of a game. And after getting thumped 7-2, there's a little bit of rage. There's a little bit of rage.
Yeah, good. But, I think they're coming home with their heads held high. 4 points out of 6 that were on the table, putting up their second 3-game winning streak of the season. And it ends with a thud, the 7-2 scoreline. And man, oh man, ifs and buts were candy and nuts, we'd all have a very Merry Christmas. And if the Montreal Canadiens were able to convert early on those chances, boy, I mean, they were swarming, and Colorado's defense got, burned a little bit by that Habs speed, but the final answer and goal was a little bit of a difference maker in order to stop the momentum, because had the Canadiens been able to score early in that hockey game, I'm not saying they win, but maybe it would have been a little tightly contested than how it turned out. I mean, you crashed the goaltender. Not only does the goal stand, but you're down a man. You got to kill the penalty, right? But
I think
I like the start. I like the start on Sunday. Saturday.
I think we can honestly say that they did Jakub Dobeš no favors at the beginning of the game, and then it just took off from there, right?
Yeah.
Like, again, Arbor Xhekaj getting tripped right in front of the net.
Yeah.
The Josh Anderson crashing the net at full speed. That, I swear, that man only has one speed, and it's full speed.
Yeah.
And so crashing the net that way, there's a better way to defend, in my honest opinion. And I really did not like Josh Anderson's game. We'll get into that overall. But I felt like that, and the frustration that ensued after that, the lack of discipline that some of the veterans showed, like, those are things that really stuck out to me as kind of being like, oh, okay. For a team that won 2 games on the road back to back, to see them kind of, show that frustration, I was a little surprised. But I think, to me, I don't think I can blame this game on Jakub Dobeš. I think any goaltender that would have been behind that Canadiens team would have lost that game. Montembeault, Dobeš, Prime Carey Price, anybody would have lost that game. where I really kind of hone in on and point the finger when it comes to a team like Colorado, you see where they were able to take advantage of the Canadiens, and it was down the middle. It was center ice. Center ice was exposed. The top of the slot was easy to work around. There were crisscrossing in the offensive zone. The Canadiens system, they do play a man-to-man system, but when your guys aren't back quick enough, like for example, Brock Nelson's second goal, Nick Suzuki was still in the neutral zone and they were already circling the Canadiens offensive zone for 5 seconds. Like that's kind of where I'm getting at, where there isn't a structural system in place for them to be able to handle being overloaded by the top team in the NHL. And so I again stress this. I expected this to be a loss, but I think it's what you took from this game that's more important. What are the Canadiens missing to be as good as the Colorado Avalanche? And I know we're about to get like a million smart ass answers, but constructively, what are they missing? And I think the biggest difference is the strength down the middle, the secondary scoring from the Colorado Avalanche that really started the party.
I think you nail it. To me, it begins with the center ice position, and you already highlighted that as an area of difference in the 7-2 loss at Colorado on Saturday afternoon. Josh Anderson, the depth, the secondary third level scoring. Like there was a sequence there on where Alex Carrier trips up Jack-Eye. Jack-Eye's down in the middle of the ice, and the Canadiens are so out of position in their own end. There was Brendan Gallagher, just like kind of leaning on his thigh pads, watching the play unravel before his very eyes. And listen, I don't know what Martin St. Louis is going to do in terms of addressing the issue of veterans and the lack of engagement. And listen, I mean, Gallagher finally got his first goal of the season last week or a week and a half ago now, but it's tough watching. It's tough for me to watch Brendan Gallagher out there on a young team that moves, and he's still getting second wave power play time. So you talk about the veteran presence on this team. I'm all for good veterans, but not so sure. I'm not so sure, for Brendan Gallagher's future role on this team and what's going to happen there, because it falls into that category. You need depth. You need depth a lot of the time, and it's been tough watching Gallagher out there lately. That's just my point of view.
Yeah, it's tough to be able to speak about Gallagher because he is such a good human being and he's such a nice person to talk to, and
a great leader, great teammate.
Great leader, great teammate, really fun person to be around, and has given everything to this organization. But unfortunately, you watch him play sometimes. I appreciate him. Like sometimes he'll put out these Herculean efforts in the first period, but then every single shift after that, he's completely gassed. And I think unfortunately, like that's just, he was never a good skater to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And as you get into the later stages of your career, you kind of slow down in that regard. And I think it's very easy to see that with him. It's unfortunate. And I think he is at best a fourth line player at this stage of his career. I think that last year was an outlier where he scored those 20 goals. And I commend him because of his story and obviously what happened with his mom. There's a lot of motivation there too. And I tip my hat to him because I don't know if I would have been able to play through something like that as a son. But I think where he's at in his career right now, and unfortunately, it is what it is. He's on a fourth line, and I think he needs to be sheltered on that fourth line. And I don't think that Joe Veleno is the guy to shelter him in that situation. So I think I would follow up with this. I think the Canadiens' problems are bigger than Brendan Gallagher. I think so. I don't think that I liked Josh Anderson last night at all. I haven't appreciated Josh Anderson in a couple of games, but I thought Josh Anderson was all over the place last night. His emotions again took over. Like he really does not like playing against a certain referee because he's always getting called. He's always pissed off. It's always the same guy. And I'm just like, you need your veterans to show some discipline in a game like this, or else the game flies off the handle. And I think that's what they got away from, is that the game kind of flew out the handle. You're giving the best team in the NHL countless power play opportunities, one after the other. Like the game's momentum is lost after that. And again, I go back to it, but the Canadiens' lack of depth at center, I think, was made ever so obvious in this game. Like, I'm sorry. Oliver Kapanen, is a good 200-foot player. He is a rookie. He's only going to get better. But man, was it rough at certain times watching that center matchup, And again, he got an assist. He got like that. I'm not going to call it a phantom assist there, but he got an assist on the Demidov goal. But that play was all Juraj Slafkovsky.
Et voila.
I appreciate his ability to be able to get the offensive rub from those two players, and I like the fact that he does, to a degree, cover for them. But the situation is if the Canadiens want to be a competitive Stanley Cup team, Oliver Kapanen ideally is your third line center. Even as he continues to get better, ideally your third line center. And then you bring in a guy that is a legitimate 2C, and now everybody's in their chair. And I think then you can go, shift by shift against a team that rolls 4 lines consistently and has elite talent on their top line.
As we titled this live stream on this Sunday morning, the Montreal Canadiens rise to the challenge, right? They tried to. And I think the takeaway for me, right, and I'm going to get into some of the comments because there's a consistent theme here that I want to touch on. And it's one of the key points, the silver linings. When you lose 7-2, right, you're trying to find some silver linings. And it began with, the road trip being successful, winning the first 2 games and, getting schooled a little bit. But I think the strongest takeaway from losing to a team like Colorado, who is very much lined up to win the Stanley Cup this year. This is a true Stanley Cup contending team. This is arguably the creme de la creme of the National Hockey League. And you saw the disparity between the youngest team in the NHL and the Montreal Canadiens and a team that is ready to win the Stanley Cup. And, Marco there filled in some of the holes, what was exposed, how much room the Canadiens have left to grow to. Hopefully one day this fan base can cheer on their team the way Colorado fans are cheering on the Avalanche. But with that being said, the silver lining is watching Juraj Slafkovsky, I think, turn into a more mature player. Marco and I are going to have I think what was a great conversation about Juraj Slafkovsky. Has he arrived in the National Hockey League? We're watching this 21-year-old young man, be retasked with a different line to take on an air quote leadership role as the guy with the more game experience at the National Hockey League level. And man, he was all over the ice yesterday, and there weren't a lot of his teammates as the game progressed, Marco, beyond the 20-minute marker. But man, his game really stood out in a positive way. And I'm glad to see a lot of the people in the comments this morning are talking about Juraj Slafkovsky's game. The fans recognized a strong performance from this young guy. What do you think of Slafkovsky's game yesterday?
Well, I could tell you one thing. I don't think he's a plug, as we see in the comments.
Crazy,
over here, but crazy, incredible. It's just he hits every 5-on-5 calculable metric that you would want out of a player, and on a line with Ivan Demidov, he has been the most visually impressive of the duo.
Yeah,
and obviously the following subsequent comment is, well, Demidov is a rookie. Yes, I understand that. But when you're looking at who is driving that line, it's Slav. And I think that's the best news you could possibly have right now in terms of watching how he's developed, watching how, and I'd like to address this point. Great second line with Slav, Demi, and Kapanen. I disagree entirely with that. I think that it's a really good duo between Demidov and
Slafkovsky. I agree. Yeah. I wish I disagreed with you.
And you can plug in a legitimate 2C and it would be just as effective, if not potentially more. But in what they have, what I like is that Kapanen can hang in the face of injury.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key. Kapanen is showing that you can be an absolute wagon with him as your 3C.
Yeah.
As long as you bring in a guy that's closer to Nick Suzuki as the 2C. So what does that do? It means that the wingers have to take on more of the offensive, I would say, weight. And that's exactly what Juraj Slafkovsky's done. He's taken the responsibility of being the play driver, of helping in transition, of making space for his teammates, of pulling out rando spinoramas at the moment that he receives a pass so that he can evade coverage and make a play. He is moving with assurance. He's moving with confidence. This is the Juraj Slafkovsky that we saw at the Olympics in his draft year. This exact type of player. He's back to his strong side on the left. He's playing strong. He's going to the net. He's screening goaltenders for goals. The only issue with Slafkovsky is he's often the fourth man on a play. Obviously, the last 2 games he's gotten his fair share of points, and deservedly so. But I always felt like in the month of November he was playing well. It just wouldn't show up on the stat sheet. He'd always be the fourth man on the play. He'd always be the guy screening the goalie. He'd always just miss the tip in. But he has just been so strong, and being able to watch the play develop and then develop it for him. The game slows down. I think that's a really good comment. The game has slowed down.
Yeah.
Everything that he does now seems more calculated. There's less of these random giveaways. He looks less so much like Bambi in defensive coverage. He's challenging guys defensively. He's boxing guys out. He's using his stick. That's what you want to see. And I think he does that with such regularity now that Martin St. Louis has no choice but to put him back on the top line when they're trying to defend a lead. Because as we've discussed, that top line is the best 5-on-5 line, one of the best 5-on-5 lines in hockey. So, I think you can see the impact that he has as an individual on this team right now. And I think he's a major reason why that second line is going at the rate that it is.
What are they going to do, though? Like when Kirby Dach is back after the holidays, Kapanen, Kirby Dach's contract, ultimately finding a decision with Kirby Dach. Like, who is this player? Who is this player? Where does he even fit in with the Montreal Canadiens? Because like you see it, you talk about it, I see it, I talk about it. Like it's all about maximizing this potential, right? And building off Demidov, Slafkovsky's development, Lane Hutson's development. The Canadiens' top 4 on their defense is more or less set. Waiting for maybe Jacob Fowler to establish himself. Like everything lining up, syncing up, right? Like I wonder where Kirby Dach's role is in the vision of Ken Hughes and Jeff Gordon.
I think if he comes back,
exactly.
Yeah, if he comes back, I think they'll put him back at center. I don't think he'll bump Kapanen out because Kapanen's developed such good chemistry with Ivan Demidov. And I think we can all agree Kapanen is a better defensive player than Dach. So who better in this situation? And I'd say that Kapanen's a better faceoff guy than Dach. So why change that situation in any way? Put Dach on another line as a center, bump Jake Evans down, move, a Veleno to the wing, and then finish off the third line with the wingers you have left. But I think when Kirby Dach comes back, everybody just gets bumped down as of the third line. That's what it is. I don't think that you can remove any of those 3 youngsters from the second line right now outside of the acquisition of a bona fide number 2 center. So I wouldn't touch it. I agree with everybody. That line works right now. Don't play with it. Don't mess with it. Just give it more ice time.
I mean, is there anything? Have you heard anything at all about? We're getting into
hearing voices.
Well, listen, that's a topic for another day. But in the here and now, as far as like what the Canadiens are up to, if anything, we're getting into December tomorrow. It's the last day of November today. Is there anything on the periphery around the Canadiens looking for help up front? If we're talking about, you asked the question, right? What are the Canadiens missing? How can they build and keep the momentum going, be a top 3 team in the Atlantic? How can they do that just internally? Or are they going to go get external help? Is there anything on the periphery around any smoke around the Canadiens exploring any of those options today?
Well, I see comments. There's a comment made that the Canadiens should wiggle Dach and Guhle and eventually replace Guhle with Reinbacher. I'm probably higher on Reinbacher than most people are, and I would say that he is not ready for the NHL. Leave that man alone. Yeah. Let him play in Laval. Let him cook. Let him stay there all season, for the love of God, so that he can actually have, I don't know, maybe like 50 games of AHL experience by the end of the year. Like, come on, man. Leave him alone. Don't rush guys up. You already have Adam Engstrom there. And we will address Caden Goulet's trade status in a future episode this week.
Exactly.
But I could definitely tell you that wiggling Dach and Guhle while they're injured is not going to get you anywhere.
I know.
So what do they need to do? You absolutely need a 2C. Absolutely. I think we've been saying this for a year now. Everybody knows it. Marty St. Louis knows it. Ken Hughes, Jeff Gordon knows it. Everybody knows it.
Yeah.
Now, I think where you have to take this is it an immediate need? Is it something that you absolutely need to address this second? I don't think so. I think that this offers them an opportunity to get more information on what Kapanen's ceiling is. I think we've addressed this already, but I think the more games you get, the larger the sample size is, the more you get to see. You get to see what kind of a play driver Slafkovsky can be in his own right. You get to bring along Ivan Demidov, who, what is it now, 6-game point streak. So like it's still it continues to add points and still look good without necessarily hurting his team defensively too much. Some unfortunate turnovers at times, but other than that, he seems to be showing consistency in the offensive production. And then the defense. I think the defense is going to work itself out. I see a lot of people talking about the defensive structure with the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah,
I 100% agree.
That. Yes,
I 100% agree. And I used to say that outside of the top pair, the defensive structure was all over the place. Well, last night, the top pair joined that conversation. I did not like what I saw from Noah Dobson in that game at all. And so I think it's a back to basics situation. I think it's a wake up call when you play a team like that. Yeah. I think that Adam Engstrom, I honestly believe that Adam Engstrom, all things being equal, I think Adam Engstrom is a better overall defenseman than Arbor Xhekaj right now.
Oh yeah. Right now,
but I don't think that those two are the two that you need to point the finger at for last night's breakdown of defensive structure.
No, listen, Alex Carrier is on the struggle bus and has been on the struggle bus for a minute. Yeah. There's no denying that. But Alex Carrier stays in the lineup, because of how he plays shorthanded, right? I mean, they need that defensive defenseman, and right there with Mike Matheson. I mean, these are the go-to guys essentially, right? I mean, nice to see they're giving Arbor Xhekaj a few seconds in shorthanded situations to see if they can trust his decision making a little bit more. But there were 2 sequences against Colorado yesterday where I was like, wow, look at you, Adam Engstrom. The game has already slowed down for you, where he was hemmed in into his own end. He took his time to go back to the net, kind of reset, authored a breakout, and the Canadiens were able to move the puck out of trouble, right? And I was like, nice, calm, poised play for a guy who played his second game, because Jaden Struble was out with an upper body injury yesterday. I really liked the poise that Engstrom displayed yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I appreciate from a guy like Engstrom is that when you come into the NHL, usually the speed of the game takes players by surprise.
Yeah.
But he's already a player that thinks the game at such a fast level that I didn't find the transition to be that bad. It was more the chemistry. It was more the timing with his defensive pair that I found needed work. But I mean, again, he's had one practice with the Canadiens since being recalled. So it's not like
games.
You really exactly like tomorrow. They're going to be able to practice, and I think things will calm down a little bit, and he'll be able to kind of get his mojo going with his defensive partner, assuming, of course, that he plays against the Ottawa Senators. What I would add is what makes Adam Engstrom look better visually, the poise that he has with the puck. He's the kind of player that is able to move the puck up the ice with possession of the puck without breaking stride. A lot of people, when the puck is on their sticks, it's like a grenade. They overthink it. They slow down because they're trying to think of what the next move is. Adam Engstrom is able to both skate up the puck with speed and make decisions quickly so that he's able to continue the offensive pressure. And there was a specific shift against the Avalanche where the Canadiens spent a good minute in the offensive zone, and it was Engstrom and Hudson at the point. And that is a pairing that I would very much like to see a little bit more of moving forward, depending on the severity of Jaden Struble's injury.
Yeah,
I really, especially with Engstrom's ability to play the right and then pushing Hudson back to his natural left D position, I would be very interested to see that pairing for a couple of games, because I would love to see Engstrom challenged to play a more defensive side of the puck kind of role and allow Hudson to roam. I want to see how he'd respond to that, because I think he has the potential to do that. And what will make or break him being a top 4 defenseman in the NHL is being able to execute that kind of deployment where he would be, yes, we know he's going to be able to move the puck up quickly. He's going to be able to move the puck up the ice and join the rush. We all know he could do that.
Yeah.
But I think in the same lens as a Mike Matheson a couple of years ago, being able to round out the defensive side of the game and show a willingness to be able to sacrifice a little bit of your offensive instinct for the right play, that's what I want to see. Because if he could really add that element to his game at the NHL level, he's going to stick around for a long time.
Boy, that Avalanche offense and the depth. I mean, Brock Nelson obviously had himself a day, but Nathan McKinnon's speed burst. I mean, we're talking about another cheat code player. Cale Makar moving things around from the blue line. I mean, it jumbled up the Canadiens defensively. It created for a very ugly painting in Colorado yesterday. I mean, some of the defensive miscues. Again, we even saw it, I think, on the one goal Vegas scored Friday afternoon where everybody was like glued to one side. I mean, Colorado has this tendency, like they don't lose. They don't lose at home. They've rarely lost at all this season. Even though they lost in a shootout to Minnesota on Friday, they come back and exercise those wrongs in a dominant performance. But they make a lot of teams look silly, so I don't want to overreact or overread on a bad day at the office for the Canadiens, where they got embarrassed on the scoreboard. There's no sugarcoating it here. They got outclassed, but Colorado has a tendency to do that to a lot of teams, right? They were on a 10-game winning streak and 3 shutouts in a row before Minnesota.
Yeah, I think one of the jokes that was someone mentioned to me was, I'm glad Montreal scored a goal.
Yeah.
But again, I don't think any goalie was stopping that setup from Uri Slafkovsky to Ivan Demidov, so I'll give him that. Yeah. And one thing I do want to point out, because I know that there's going to be a lot of negatives about this game, but one thing that's really stood out to me, I think Lane Hudson got the message that he needs to shoot more.
Correct. Yes.
Because he's at 4 goals already.
Yeah.
And he's taken, I think his shot attempt total, if you look at it in 10-game increments, I think his shot attempt total has tripled. Because I would say since about the November 12th mark, it's just been him taking shots, him being fearless with it, not necessarily trying to blow the goalie's water bottle off the netting, but just carefully placed, strong, low shots are starting to beat goaltenders, and not just any goaltender. Like one of the best goaltenders in the NHL yesterday was in nets. And that was a really smart shot that I liked from him. And the fact that he was able to walk in to the high slot to be able to take that shot shows how little respect the opposition has for his shot. But I think the more he starts to do that, the higher guys are going to start playing, the more it's going to open up the ice and the bumper. And that's, I think, where the Canadiens will be able to strike more regularly on the power play.
Well, he's got, I think, 13 shots in his last 6 games, and he had a 5-shot. He had a 5-shot gamer in mid-November, if I recall, right? I think Vegas was the one game in this stretch where he didn't finish with a shot on goal on the box sheet, and coincidentally in a game where the Canadiens dominated, right? And there he was held shotless, but I'm always amazed, and I think Marco, great players have this tendency to do this. And I remember Sidney Crosby talking about, says, "Oh, you don't think I could be a dominant guy in the face-off circle?" Works on that. Doesn't think, "Oh, you tell me I can't score 50 goals." Spends the summer working on the shot. Lane Hudson has been a man possessed, talking to everybody about, shoot the puck more. I need to work on my shot. So I'm glad to see that. I think he's a great player, and that's what great players do. They fine-tune and hone in on those skills.
Sidney Crosby's on pace for 55 goals this season as a 38-year-old.
This guy's what a
nuts.
Cyborg. This guy was built in a factory in Nova Scotia somewhere. They brought all the best engineers in the world and said, "Make me a hockey player." And Sidney Crosby, 1987, was born.
Yeah, and then shortly after they made Nate McKinnon.
Right.
Both from Cole Harbor. Nate McKinnon on pace for 143 points, ladies and gentlemen.
I mean, what a
absolute
superstar.
cheat code.
Yes.
Absolute cheat code. And it's impossible for anybody in the NHL to defend him the way that he's playing right now.
Yeah.
So I do want to get into the defensive structure because it is something that I wanted to address. Yeah. But I do want to start by saying good luck defending Nate McKinnon and Martin Necas playing together. It's incredible to watch. It's almost funny to see how well the Colorado Avalanche salvaged the Mikko Rantanen situation,
Yeah.
because it initially looked like disaster, and then Nietzsche fits in so easily. I still think Rantanen's a better player, but to get the picks that they got, plus Drury, who's another center that plays on their bottom six, plus Nietzsche that they signed long term, I don't think they made out in this situation as bad as many other teams that have traded quality players. I'm talking about the Leafs, for example.
Yeah.
Usually when you trade an 100-point player, you take a step back. The Colorado Avalanche have taken 2 steps up. So it's been really good to watch them. And I think one of the things that makes them so dangerous is in the offensive zone. You're playing, this is the offensive zone. They're basically moving like this. They're constantly in a cycle, and it forces the Canadiens to run after them. And I see this in the comments. The Canadiens are running after them. Yeah, because you have no choice. They're always moving. There's no way to defend them if you're playing man-to-man. You'd have to play zone defense, which the Canadiens don't, and I don't suggest you do that on a regular basis. But against teams like the Colorado Avalanche, you may have to tweak a little bit of the strategy, right? And so that's why teams have had such difficulty against them, because they overload the defensive structure. And the key point with them is if you don't have a strong presence in the center of the ice, which means between the goal mouth and the end of the circles, then you're going to get exposed, because the puck is going to be going laterally left and right. No problem. No one blocking those passing lanes. And that's exactly what happened against Montreal yesterday, is that cross seam passes were just easy to make. They weren't cutting passing lanes. They weren't concentrated on the play that was coming. They were catching up to the play that was in front of them.
Excuse me. What about this from our friend, member to the show? Thanks for being part of the community. Peace Country Equipment 623. This man-on-man D is rough most games. Forget about when you play 3 and 4 and show up against the wagon of a team in Colorado, and then follows it up by talking about much easier to defend this Avalanche team if you play zone. Not saying we'd win, just saying it wouldn't be a blowout like it was yesterday. That's from Peace Country.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think that there were at least 3 goals yesterday that a calmer defensive group would have been able to stop from happening. I think of for example, the Brock Nelson second goal where Noah Dobson literally right next to him. And it's like, well, tie him up, buddy. Like, you're right there. You know, and then, Alex Carey overcommitting on a couple of those goals, again, getting caught chasing, tripping Arbor Jackeye, it's situations like that where you're just like,
what a cluster bleep. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So to me, yes, the defensive structure is suspect 100%, but it's also because A, they're not playing with confidence, and B, that bottom pair got exposed so thoroughly.
Yeah, Major. Yeah.
And so they took advantage of that. And that's what happens when you play Colorado when you don't have the last change. You are basically exposing yourself to the lack of depth in your lineup. Like, it doesn't make sense. Ladies and gentlemen, putting out the Veleno line against the Brock Nelson line is one of the biggest mismatches I've seen this season on the ice. And the Canadiens, because of their injuries, they're exposed to this, right? Ideally, your fourth line is the Jake Evans, Josh Anderson, fill in the blank line, right? But now they're forced to be your third line, and the way they play them at 5-on-5, almost your second line. I don't think that's going to work on the road. And so this is why I say the Canadiens, ironically, are actually better on the road than they are at the Bell Center. But these kinds of matchups are easier at home than they are in the Bell Center. On the road than they are in the Bell Center. On the road, you're consistently getting exposed. You're always getting top lines against your second line. The Canadian second line was getting matched up against the McKinnon line so often that they had to basically cut their shifts to 40 seconds. I don't know if you noticed this. They were cutting their shifts early, forcing them back to the bench early so that they could swap them out faster before they got exposed. There were little instances, little details of last night's game. So part of it is coaching, 100%. Part of it is coaching. I feel like the Canadiens, I wouldn't say are not prepared enough for games like this, but haven't been exposed to this level of play on a consistent basis for them to be able to play against these top dogs. Like, you have to understand, Colorado is on a mountain by itself right now.
Exactly.
Right? Who's the best team that the Canadiens have played other than that? The Devils? Haven't played Tampa yet.
No.
Right? So what is it? The Devils? That's it? You know, like just a quick look at the NHL standings, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, they haven't played top end teams. They haven't had to deal with this. Like Boston's ahead of them just gracefully. They haven't played Carolina yet. And you look at the Western Conference, maybe Dallas.
The Dallas, don't bring up the Dallas game. Don't bring up the Dallas game.
And then you saw how that came out. You know, LA, we saw how that worked out.
Yeah.
It's those older, more experienced teams that know how to take advantage of system issues. Like at one point, I remember that it stuck out to me, this play. Like Jake Evans tried to make a backward pass. It got stuck on the boards and no one went to get it. And I remember looking like at Nate McKinnon's body language, like okay. And then he just goes and grabs the puck, where like these are like defensive mistakes that shouldn't be made on a regular basis. And you're doing it against arguably one of the top 3 players right now, the best player in the league. They're going to get it. They're going to catch you on that. So some of these unforced errors is one thing. Some of these forced errors because of their insane forecheck is another, but it's a good barometer game for a team that's still in the rebuilding phase. I don't care what hot take merchants say. This is still a team that's rebuilding. When you don't have a legitimate 2C, you're rebuilding. You're taking this team and you're seeing, okay, they're good here. There's some work to be done there. I like what we see here. I didn't like what we see there. Like the positives that you can take out of yesterday was the Canadiens have the blueprint for consistent secondary scoring, in my opinion, right? Having Slafkovsky and Demidov as your anchors on the second line is probably going to allow them to count on more than one line to create offense on a regular basis. That's a positive, right? The Canadiens' power play has improved, in my honest opinion, from the structure and the way that they go about creating their offense during this road trip. That's definitely a positive. Ivan Demidov is taking more shots, more regularity in his shooting potential. It's almost like he took Alex Kovalov's comments to heart. So, shooting with more regularity. And I like that. And then, it brings us back to some of the transition elements that I think the Canadiens can improve. The Canadiens down the middle get exposed by other teams because their centers aren't meant to carry the pucks up the ice. Kapanen is not a transition player. Jake Evans, he's not really, he brings the puck to the blue line and then they dump it in. And then Joe Veleno, again, same concept, dump in. So the Canadiens have difficulty moving the puck up the middle with possession. And that's the main thing that hurt them, in my opinion, against the Avalanche, because then the plays got cut, went back the other way, and they'd spend, 60 to 90 seconds in their own zone getting circled around. So the takeaway is there for me in this game.
There's so many comments around Martin St. Louis. And honestly, you guys, like, I'm really surprised. Some of y'all are carving up Martin St. Louis. Like, maybe I'm watching a different team. I don't know what you want this Canadiens team to look like. They're the youngest team in the National Hockey League. And as it's been pointed out a few times on today's episode, like, yes, they got cracked, humbled by the best team in hockey, and it's not even close. And as we know, like, the Montreal Canadiens are decimated with injuries. We know they still don't have a 2C. I don't know in what world this falls on the lap of Martin St. Louis. And look, I have never once talked about
they're missing an entire top 9 line.
Well, exactly. And listen, here, look, MSL played Demidov. Look at Demidov's 5-on-5 ice time. If the Canadiens weren't shorthanded as often, he would not be up. He would not be close to. Joe Veleno wouldn't have more time. He plays more 5-on-5. But again, this is the youngest team in hockey. Look at the individual development of some players. Look at Cole Caulfield. Look at Demidov. Look how Mike Matheson is playing in this system. Look how Lane Hudson is playing in this system, right? Like, I don't know what else. And there are some issues. There are some issues I take with Martin St. Louis, like the shorthandedness I find, cutting guys' ice time down in the third period.
Not taking a freaking timeout when you need to.
That's timeout, Schmeimeout. That's one of the most overrated. That's almost like blaming the referees, in my opinion.
No, man.
A timeout.
When you're a young team like this, taking timeouts.
To me, again, you know what? When I watch how this team plays, And I find him very honest. I find MSL very honest. He'll tell the media that he's far from perfect. He'll talk about how on the road he gets into these situations where he looks at matchups way too often. He gets caught in that trap. Like, he's learning. He's learning like this team is learning. And no one's saying he's perfect, but if we're seriously going to sit here and point the blame at Martin St. Louis and let's talk about coaching, there are far more issues that need to be addressed, in my opinion, than talking about the job MSL does behind the bench.
Practice.
I'm just kind of surprised to see it.
No, I think there's definitely some, I wouldn't say blame, but definitely some discussion that could be had when it comes to Martin St. Louis and the way that he's utilizing his team right now. The over-reliance on veterans, for example, is one thing. It's the youngest team in the league. You have no choice but to lean on some of your young players at times. I understand the Demidov reference, though. I think that's spot on in the sense that he would have had more minutes had there been power play, more power play time, but his 5-on-5 minutes have actually increased. If you noticed, he was playing 10 minutes 5-on-5.
That's right.
And last night he was at 12:22 at 5-on-5.
Yeah.
The issue was there was so little power play time that he played 14-12. But 14-12, he played more than Brendan Gallagher. He played more than Florian Jacki. He played more than two defensemen, two defensemen. Played more than Tessier. Kapanen played more because he was on the penalty kill, and the team was on the penalty kill for so long. Heck, he played more than Zachary Bolduc.
Yeah.
So, the problem was the Canadiens on the power play, because at 5-on-5, it's actually quite even. The problem is, and this is my question to fans, and tell me in the comments, how do you get him more minutes without putting him on the top line?
Mm-hmm.
How? There are two answers.
Yeah.
You start using him on the PK, or you put him on the first wave of the power play. And I know everyone's answer is going to be first wave of the power play. And so that's basically it, because right now,
it's wild. Everyone has their opinion, but
but this is these are my favorite kind of comments, because when the Canadiens hired Pascal Vincent, the litter of comments of he's never developed anything.
Yeah.
And he's never, who has he helped? Who did he develop in Winnipeg? Look at how terrible of a job he did in Columbus. And he has been fantastic for the Laval Rocket. And Martin St. Louis himself has tipped his cap to how prepared the players come out of Laval to play in the NHL.
Correct.
He's been fantastic. But it's just but then you win, right? And so this is where I'm at with this team. The Canadiens did not add substantial enough experience to their roster during the offseason, ran into 3 major injuries at forward, and are now paying the price for it. The fact that they've been able to stay above water this long for that period of time is a borderline miracle. And that miracle is brought to you by Sir Nick Suzuki half the time.
Mm-hmm.
If you are a team that the Canadiens are in, if you are the Ottawa Senators right now, and you lose Claude Giroux, Ridley Greig, and Shane Pinto, good luck, bud.
Yeah.
Good. That's a massive amount of loss. And the way that Alex Newhook was playing to lose him there, it's a huge loss. There's nobody in the system that's going to be able to replace the way that he was playing unless you got a guy like Zachary Bolduc going. So they did. The biggest loss to the Montreal Canadiens to start this season is never more evident when they play teams like Colorado. It's Caden Gooley. Because Caden Gooley's best feature is rush defense. Being able to keep up skating backwards with players skating at him forward. That is one of his best qualities. And then obviously physicality, active stick. He would have been the focal point player in a game like yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of playing Alex Carrier 22 minutes, they would have been playing Caden Gooley 22, 23, 24 minutes against a team like the Avalanche, against a player like Nate McKinnon. And so that's kind of where I always, when I look at the defensive structure of this team, I always keep that in mind. You had Arbor Jacki, you had Adam Engstrom, who are two younger players getting their feet wet. Alex Carrier is not having his best hockey as of late. They were going to get rattled by this team. So I'm not necessarily worried about that. I'm not going to put that on MSL. What my main critique with MSL is the over reliance on veterans, even when they're not playing well.
Yeah, but they're the youngest team in hockey. They had 5 rookies on the ice yesterday. Name me a coach that wouldn't do that on a competitive. Canadians are very competitive. What coach wouldn't do that though? Like, what coach seriously would not lean on in a tight, contested game?
Why would you be able to play Oliver Kapanen 16 minutes, 4.5 of which came on the penalty kill, but not play him top 6 minutes on his second line, as is written on the stat sheet, at 5-on-5? Like, it's what you call idiosyncrasy. You're not following the logic. If you trust him enough to be on the PK, why don't you trust him enough to be on the ice for 15 minutes, 16 minutes in a game? Right? If you're a top 6 center, or let's just say second line center, third line center, you're playing at 5-on-5. You're playing anywhere between 13 to 15 minutes.
Yes.
At even strength, assuming, a fluctuation of penalty of special teams. Why is he not able to do that on a regular basis? And so that's where the Demidov ice time conversation comes into it, because his ice time would be higher if they trusted that line on a more general basis, but you trust the center on that line to be on your penalty kill.
Correct.
Like that's where I don't follow. And that's why.
But he's been very consistent. He's talked about how smart he believes Kapanen's game to be, right? But doesn't talk about the skill.
An NHL coach, but
doesn't talk about the skill set. Like Kapanen's not a number 2 center. Like he's Jake Evans with better scoring to me.
By youngest team by many months, I would add. But
yes,
no, the Canadiens, I think one of the biggest differentiating elements, I think, is you had 5 rookies in the lineup last night, right?
Correct.
Let us look at the overall ice time count and see where those rookies are. Lowest ice time, Florian Jacki, 10 minutes, 34 seconds.
Yeah.
Next rookie, Adam Engstrom, 13 minutes, 28 seconds. Kind of understandable.
Yep.
Let's see here. We have Ivan Demidov, 14 minutes, 12 seconds. You have Oliver Kapanen, 16 minutes, 31. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
So Kapanen, being the rookie that you trust the most in this case, this is total minutes. But let's flip this conversation to 5-on-5. Florian Jacki, 1034, same amount, because he doesn't play special teams.
Yep.
Oliver Kapanen, 1124. He had almost 5 minutes of penalty kill time.
Yep.
And so that's the offset. So Demidov getting 14 minutes is because that line only got 11, 12 minutes at even strength, because Kapanen was killing penalties for so long that line was skipping shifts. Well, if that's the case, then usually what happens at the end of a PK is you bring in another line to come in and really kind of get their mojo going and exert pressure against the opposition. The problem is the 4 centers on the Canadiens. So Suzuki, Kapanen, Evans, and now Veleno all play penalty kill.
Yep.
All of them. So that hurts you in the next shift. So generally speaking, Suzuki goes out first on the penalty kill, so his line can come out right after the opposition's power play to play against them and to get the momentum back in the Canadiens' favor. The issue is the following line that comes out is more often than not Jake Evans's line, not Oliver Kapanen's. That's where they lose minutes. And but that's my critique.
Like, unless I'm wrong here, when I see this comment, like trusted on the PK, not 5-on-5, right? And Matty doesn't make much sense what Marco's kind of talking about there.
It is. It is.
But in my mind, right? Like if you're out there 5-on-5 as a top 2 center in the National Hockey League on any team, right? You're supposed to be driving the offense. You're supposed to be making your wingers better. Whereas Oliver Kapanen, in my mind, is a smart defensive forward who can play his position well. And I think therein lies the difference. Kapanen's skill set isn't good enough to consistently be out there to drive second line scoring to make Slafkovsky,
but he doesn't have to.
Demidov better. But that's where the difference is. That's where the lopsidedness comes into me.
But
Martin St. Louis doesn't trust him to go out there and drive it.
He doesn't have to. That's the thing. That's the thing about Oliver Kapanen. I don't really mind that. He doesn't need to be there to drive the offense. That's not what his role is going to be when he reaches top level.
Agreed.
He's going to be a great, strong two-way, third, like elite, I believe, third line center. A guy like he's doing right now that could come in the place of injury if there's an issue. The line drivers are on the wings, and he finds a way to get Juraj Slafkovsky minutes, right? How often do you see? Because I just mentioned Zachary Balzuk had less minutes. Well, what happened? He was flipping Slafkovsky onto the top line to get him extra minutes because of the way he was playing. But that doesn't happen with Demidov on a regular basis.
No.
That's what I'd like to see. And he's done it before. Don't tell me that this is...
Bro, like Kaprizov is a superstar. Ivan Demidov is 19 years old. Juraj Slafkovsky just got on this line. Just got there. Like, to me, it's apples and oranges. It's not the same to bring up Kaprizov in Minnesota. Kaprizov is a superstar in the National Hockey League.
But who does he play with? Joel Eriksson Ek.
Correct.
And Eriksson Ek, to me, is a level above what I believe Kapanen is going to be at his NHL peak. Right? To me, Eriksson Ek is like your Selke level, second line center all day, every day on a championship winning team. No questions asked. I think the Kapanen, if he really hits the highest of highest potential, could potentially reach that. But I think more often than not, he'll be one level below that. And that's totally fine for a guy you picked at the end of the second round. So when you look at that and you focus in on that and you're like, okay, well, these are his limitations. Slafkovsky and Demidov are the play drivers. I think it's very obvious to everybody here. So I don't think that impacts Kapanen being able to play. It's the line itself that is being hampered because you're using Slafkovsky on the top line. Kapanen's being used at even on the penalty kill. So Demidov skips the shift at even strength. What I'd like to see in consequence to that is if Brendan Gallagher is not having a game, how is it going to hurt you to put on the following shift to put him with Evans and Anderson, or Evans and Texier, because I think Anderson probably should have seen the bench for a good portion of that game. You have to find ways to get him in and not just skip him because you're tunnel visioned into a situation like that. Mm-hmm. That is my observation. I'm not an NHL coach. That's my observation.
Yeah, fair.
That's the way you get. That's the reason why Demidov is not getting 16 minutes a game. I will state, and I will give credit, Demidov's ice time has increased ever so slightly every single game. We were talking about this, 2 weeks ago? He's getting 10, 12 minutes a game.
Exactly.
Now he's getting 13, 14.
Yes.
And depending on the game, if the Canadiens had more power plays, it would probably be closer to 15. So I have no problem. If Demidov plays 14 to 15 minutes a game as a rookie to start, I have no problem. But when the Canadiens get eventually a legitimate second line center, those minutes are going to have to go up.
They will.
Are going to have to go up.
How can you not believe that? They absolutely will. Because everything comes back to this player right now playing in a chair that rightfully I don't think is his, right? But I like this comment. I want to change gears we spent a lot of time there on that topic, which was fine. It was a good conversation, I thought. Was that a Swedish kroner? Thank you, sir. Very generous. Thank you for that. This is a good question in my mind. The physicality, the play style of the younger players on this team trying to get a little beefier, right? We saw this and we talked about it already in this live stream today, right? Playing those experienced and heavier teams. I still think it's an issue. It's still an issue a little bit about, how playoff hockey is played, especially the deeper you go. And right now the Canadiens are not built for a deep playoff run. Skill aside, I don't think they have the personnel to be able to pull that off.
No. And they're kind of hoping that eventually guys like Florian Jacki, Tyler Thorpe come in, Hayden Papanikis come in and kind of hold down those bottom six spots, those bigger guys that they drafted to be a little bit more imposing. And obviously everyone loves Florian. Eventually that's the kind of role they're going to want to see from him.
Call up Sammy Blais.
Well, I was going to bring up Sammy Blais because he scored 2 goals plus got the shootout winner.
What a game. What a game yesterday.
Tied the game with a minute left, 4-4, and then scores the shootout winner to make it 5-4 and the Rocket win.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised. I said this the moment he was claimed. He was sent to Laval because they didn't want him to come on the road trip. I would not be surprised if Sammy Blais is called up to Montreal this week.
You think so, huh?
And then they send Jared Davidson down.
Is he not he's a career AHLer though? Like you talk about his Abbotsford run last year in the American Hockey League, like he's like almost like a Laurent Dauphin,
Yeah,
like a professional AHL player, you know?
The thing with Vancouver is they have like at the time they had a plethora of similar players. Dakota Joshua was still playing for them. They had Kiefer Sherwood. They were still trying to find minutes for some of their younger wingers. Like even Lekaramaki couldn't even get regular shifts with the Vancouver Canucks because on the wings, they actually have a significant amount of depth. It's at center it's problematic. It's starting to sound familiar. But this is a guy that I think could add the physical element on the Canadiens' fourth line that, maybe a Jared Davidson at this stage of his career is not ready for.
Yeah.
And I also think that the way that he plays the game pulls you into the fight. Also takes a whole lot of pressure off of Arbor Xhekaj because now he's not the only one patrolling the ice that's able to drop the gloves, right? This is a guy that's able to dish him and hit at the same time. So I think he could be a guy that has the right momentum to come in. There's well-liked amongst the room as well. So I wouldn't be surprised. But in terms of team toughness, I think the fact that it was a three games and 4 on the road with the way that the schedule has been for the Canadiens of late, I think it's kind of understandable for a young team. Couple that with a young team that, in my opinion, the best elements of that team are not at physical maturity yet. So they may get pushed around by guys that are at the top of their physical level. I get that. I think that they're missing elements for sure. I think missing a guy like Caden Gooley on the back end kind of removes that physicality, especially rush defense physicality that you would hope for. So that's an element as well. But I definitely agree that, Zachary Bolduc, for example, is a guy that was brought in to be more physical. I want to see more of that from him.
Me too. Yeah, me too.
I want to see more. Like the offense is starting to jive. That's great. But I want him to go back to that style, that aggressive style, the excuse my language, but the shit disturber style that we saw him play in St. Louis.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, with respect, Blais didn't bring any pain while he played in Toronto. The Leafs in general just brought their fan base pain while he played in Toronto. So we'll leave it at that. But I think Blais,
big win for them
one
yesterday.
of the main things, one of the main things with Blais was he was physical. It was difficult to play against his line when he was on the ice. He didn't hurt the opposition. And I think that's what you're kind of missing is that if you're worried about the amount of rookies in the lineup, a guy like Blais, who's experienced, who's good being around younger players as well, is a good guy to have in the room. I think he's a guy that can help as a 13th, 14th forward, a guy that you bring in against more physical teams. I'll give you an example. Canadiens play the Senators on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And then they play the Winnipeg Jets on Wednesday. Right, back to back. Those are two teams I think Sammy Blais would be a bit better to play against than maybe, a Jared Davidson. Whereas then the Canadiens play the Leafs and the St. Louis Blues Saturday, Sunday. Well, I think maybe fresher legs are going to be better for those games.
Is Blais faster than Florian Xhekaj?
I've never seen them both skate next to each other. I think so.
R.I.P. to Florian Xhekaj's stick on that breakaway yesterday. Boy, oh boy, that sucked.
I know. that was bad. That was so bad. I felt so bad for the kid. That had first NHL goal written all over it.
Yeah. But I find Florian, listen, I'm no scout or anything, but I find Florian, I thought he'd be a little quicker. He's looked slower than I thought, I'll put it that way. That's why I wonder about Sammy Blais. Sammy Blais brings some robustness and everything else, but I wonder if he's just quicker on his feet.
He is quicker on his feet. I can confirm. I've seen just from what I've seen from Blais over the years, he's a faster skater, and I think it also helps his hitting ability. Like he's able to take like 3 powerful strides and then shoulder in. So, he's a guy I really like. Another guy that I think will get there is Florian Xhekaj, but his skating, it's already improved, but his skating is what I would consider league average. And against a team like Colorado, he does not look fast. Mm-hmm. Colorado is the definition of speed. So, and this is a team that includes Brock Nelson, who's no speedster on a general basis, but made to look quicker because he covers so much ice so quickly and makes decisions very quickly. So, again, you have to find those right elements. You have to find those right pieces. And I think a lot of teams, once they reach the point where they have their core and they're set in their top 6, 9, they start to fill out the bottom part of the roster, and that's the most difficult part, in my opinion.
Let's get to some quick questions here as we'll wrap up our live stream on this Sunday. Thank you so much for being with us. Don't forget, Marco and I will be live. Come watch the live pregame show on a game day where the Montreal Canadiens take on the big bad Boston Bruins on December 23rd. We're going to be at Maison Publique McLean's. Of course, big shout out to all of our sponsors at cheapesttshirts.ca, Little Bear, littlebearonline.com, Cabletel for the best in home security at cabletel.com, and Catherine Prince Remax Platine. Member of the show, Asmu, says, thoughts on Bolduc's contract and what that potentially could look like, Marco?
It's tough, right? Like, it depends on where he's at. It's difficult to talk about it right now because they have all season to negotiate it.
Yeah.
If you're the Montreal Canadiens, I don't know that you can give him term without seeing what he can do for a longer sample size of just 23 games, 24 games.
Agreed.
So I think that they reevaluate probably around, I'd say just before the trade deadline, just see what it looks like. I'm not saying he would be traded, obviously not. He's an RFA, but I think you have to see what he can do on a larger sample size and then go. But again, like this is a player that I don't believe is in danger of an offer sheet or anything like that. So they could take their time.
Alex Carrier has been highlighted a few times in this episode. Definitely struggling. There's no denying that. I don't think anyone's sugarcoating that. But what's he doing? Yeah. Charlottetown Spud asks, what's Carrier doing differently that's getting him in trouble recently?
I think he's forcing the play too much. You know, I think there was a specific play against, I think it was Utah, where Mike Matheson was in the corner fighting for a puck, and then Alex Carrier comes in to try and help him, leaving the front of the net completely exposed. And what happens? Puck squirts out from the corner, lands right in front of the player in the Utah player in the slot goal.
Yeah,
you know, like or you know, getting overwhelmed, like chasing his man. I feel like he'll get pushed out of a situation and then won't be able to kind of like put himself back in the proper position to be able to defend a situation. And then is going to chase that play for the rest of the game. And he's not big enough or fast enough to do that. As opposed to, you know, when a defenseman gets pulled out of a play, the key thing to do is to head back to the center of the ice, cover the center of the ice, cover a passing lane, you know, make sure that you're not out of position and that you're assisting the goalie in some way. So you always come back to the middle in that case. I feel like instead what he does is he just chases the puck. And what does it do? It leaves the ice that he's left completely open. And a team like Colorado, for example, is not going to ask questions. They're going to come in right in that spot that he left open, hoping to get a pass. The center of the ice completely open because he's chasing the puck instead of coming back to the center. Open cross seam pass, one-timer goal.
This one from James. Montebo next game. Yeah. I think so. Even though Dobesh got 2 of the 3 games on this trip, I'd go back to Monty.
Well, I think it's just gonna. It's
exactly.
It's basically just gonna be this and that. Yeah. My only concern is Montembeault against Toronto on Saturday. His record in Toronto is absolutely horrendous.
Interesting.
So that's going to be a decision that I think is going to be. I think it's Montembeault, Dobesh, you know, Ottawa, then Winnipeg, and then we see against a team like Toronto, but. I can't help but wonder if they would give Montembeault Toronto to really try to test him, considering his record there is just abysmal. And then you give Dobesh the St. Louis Blues at home the next day. I think that's how it's probably going to work out.
It's back-to-back this week, home to Ottawa.
Back-to-back.
Yeah, Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday, as we just finished highlighting, they're at Toronto and then back home Sunday night to play the St. Louis Blues. And we'll be here to cover each and every single one of these games as you've come expected to see, and very much looking forward to it. We've got some good stuff coming up. Starting tomorrow, members are going to be able to watch our Monday video later this afternoon. We're going to tip our cap to Slafzilla. Has he arrived? We're going to go in depth on Uri Slafkovsky. And also, I mean, there's a lot of Montreal Canadian defensemen in the NHL, ready for the NHL, but not enough chairs for everyone to occupy. We're going to talk about the sacrificial D. Who is it? Who should it be? Who do we think it's going to be? That's coming up on Tuesday. But as always, members of the channel get to watch those videos before anyone else. And then they're going to be released the following day at 10 in the morning. And that'll do it for Sunday. So lots of stuff. Thank you so much for being great in the comments today. Fun to have a good back and forth, good discussion, respected discussion, differing points of views. And I hope everybody enjoyed it because I know I did. Marco D'Amico, enjoy your happy birthday to Marco's mom. And enjoy the festivities, enjoy the family, enjoy driving in the snow today. Be safe out there and have yourself a good Sunday, brother.
Well, I think a lot of people are going to be driving in the snow, and I did want to add before we go that there is still a Black Friday sale going on at Canute
snowing
Jackets.
like crazy. Yeah.
This would be the good time considering the weather is about to get very cold. Jackets up to 40% off. You can go and see them in the plateau. They're on sale until December 1st. So I invite you all to go and take advantage because my wife and I love our jackets right now. And I think we're going to like them even more as it starts to get colder. So again, Canute Jackets, go and check them out in Montreal until December 1st.
Have some fun. Enjoy, everybody. Marco, thanks. And we'll see you this week.
Always a pleasure, guys. Have a good one.